Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. How you doing? Let's see. I got a food corner. Got some food in me. I went to a restaurant I've never been before called Bravo. Um, Essentially, it's just an Italian restaurant. Overall, I enjoyed it. I got some lasagna, which was a huge portion. Which I mean, I guess I should have expected. Like a pretty heaping helping, but it was pretty big. I also got a chopped salad with salmon, and that was pretty good as well. One of the it's first time in a long time that I had to do it to go, like a little to go bag, so a little doggy bag. So I was thoroughly impressed. Yeah. I'm trying to think what else. I got my smoothie today. That was also good. Also, I've had like M&Ms on the brain really bad. Generally, they're up there for like favorite chocolate candy. But with all this like controversy or whatever with like the M&Ms getting like I don't know new identities or whatever and some new shoes, it's got me thinking I want some M&Ms. So I got like an almond bag and I got just an almond bag, but like we're talking sharing size, and I live alone. Um, but yeah, catching up on my life news. That's about it. I got some updates. I wanted to do an update plus a little bit of a correction on an article I did last week. I got this from the New York Post. But essentially, they revealed the name of the hostage taker in the Texas situation. His name was Malik Faisal Akram. The thing I had misreported or misbroadcast. I don't know what the word is for whatever the hell I'm doing, but he didn't shoot himself. He was shot. The way the altercation like fully went down was after he was in there. He was able to talk to a negotiator and his brother, but in the process, the rabbi of the synagogue kind of talked to the remaining people. I think there was two other people with him at the time. He's like, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna do it, and or he like kind of like gave him the eyes. But essentially, he winds up throwing a chair at the guy. They run. The cops come in. They shoot, and Malik dies. So that all went down. Essentially, though, he was a 44-year-old man from the UK or Britain, I believe. Look at a burp coming. I know it. There it is. There's that Milwaukee's best coming out of me. But 44-year-old British man. He was definitely going through a lot. His brother did also kind of say that he had some mental health issues on top of everything he was going through. He, let's see, I believe he was divorced from his wife, who, from his perspective, he kind of felt like he had carried them, brought them up from quote unquote rags to riches. So, I mean, he said he did a lot and I guess was really broken up about the situation. He was on the radar for like terrorist activity because he had kind of become more and more extremist as his life was kind of unraveling. But MI5, which is like I guess the equivalent of like the CIA, FBI kind of vibe in UK across the pond, they had surveillance on him. They had tabs, but they weren't deeming him as like a threat. They just had him checked out. So I mean, you know how that goes. But essentially, it's kind of one of those situations that slipped through the cracks. Like I had said before in the other episode, he did reference his quote unquote sister, who wasn't a sister, the Pakistani neuroscientist Afia Siddiqui. At the end of the day, though, they didn't really have any correlation, kind of like I had said before. And also, the family of the Siddiquis had disavowed that man. They said, no, he has nothing to do with us. Like, if he knew her, he wouldn't have done this at all. So, definitely, a tragic situation. A life was lost in all this. I don't know if more is going to come out of it, but if so, I will keep you posted. And then a quick update on the Hangatanga situation. They have gotten at least a little bit of relief to the island. I believe they sent out like some warships from New Zealand and maybe another country. I want to say Japan. I'm not sure on that part. But essentially, they are bringing some relief what they can. Water was a big thing because like with all the ash and everything. Also, just clean up once they're there. I haven't been able to find too much else outside of that, but definitely if I do, I will keep you updated. You know, babies. The next bit I got from the AP News. Airlines cancel some flights after reduced 5G rollout in the U.S. So this has been something that's kind of been going on worldwide, but over here it's just kind of becoming more of a talked about issue. But essentially, the production of these 5G towers, which are, you know, obviously important for powering our phone technology, stuff like that, they're being put up like everywhere. And essentially, a big hotspot to put them up in is the airports, around airports. But the issue is the radio frequency for the Verizon and AT&T 5G towers potentially interfere with the radio altimeters on some of the planes. I think like specifically the Boeing 777s. So essentially, Verizon and AT&T have come out and said, hey, it's not as much of an issue. This is rolled out in other countries and they've just adjusted. It's been fine. But the rebuttal is, well, that's a smaller scale. And like doing it at a place like in Chicago or like in New York or what have you is going to cause a lot more of a potential issue. Even if it's minor, too many minor issues are potentially going to, you know, mess up everything. But essentially this week, it did cause some flurry because it was supposed to be rolled out and people were like, oh man, I got to get to my flight. I got to get my, you know, got to get home before this all happens. And then that had a surge. And then next thing you know, there was cancellations because people in other countries are like, hey, we don't want to fly our planes to these airports that we're potentially going to have this 5G stuff, you know, rolled out, and we're going to have issues. We don't want that. So it all kind of caused a little bit of a kerfuffle this week. Excuse me, let me get some water. So they put up a delay, but they are still planning on rolling out the technology of the towers. But essentially, I think they're going to verify them, like all the equipment with the planes that are, you know, commercially flying right now, making sure like, hey, we've done all the troubleshooting and it's going to be all good to go, at least as good as they can get it. So I mean, that's going to be something that, I mean, we'll see if it is going to be a big issue or just completely small. We won't really know until it gets fully rolled out. Let's see. The next thing we got here, I wanted to talk about the voting rights situation that we have going on. Specifically, like this week, a lot of major things happened in terms of like the Senate. They had made a play to potentially take out the filibuster and put in potential voting rights to kind of stop things like gerrymandering, specific changes to voter laws that were very like predatory, essentially like things that were like trying to knock out mail-in voting, all these kind of things. I mean, and also it's just also combating the rampant just like stop the steal mentality, you know, the whole stolen election, you know, misinformation stuff. So essentially, Democrats are making this big push to kind of make changes, but as is the trend, you know, with the Biden administration, you know, and everything going on, it wasn't strong enough, even though we have the majority, to really push things forward. You know, the Republicans said, no, we're not going to vote for this. We're voting no, and we will filibuster. And then naturally, we couldn't get enough votes to push the filibuster out. So it just was a huge jam. I got a lot of reference from The Guardian in terms of just like the main story in terms of like what happened this week. But, you know, just more or less what I'm talking about is just kind of here and there stuff leading up to this week and then, you know, seeing where we're going to go. They're talking about censoring Kyrsten Sinema. She was one of the no votes along with Manchin. Personally, I think that isn't going to do much of anything. It's just kind of gesturing anyway. But I mean, I do think it's sad. I think we did a lot to come a long way with voting rights, and it's sad to see that it's kind of the narrative is the more people are voting, the worse it is. Like, and that's sad because it shouldn't be that way. Record turnout should be a good thing, but I think it's just one of those things that is kind of a common sense thing from the right. At least their perspective is like, well, the more people are voting, that means the more people who want change are going to vote, and we don't want things to change. So we want just people who are rich and well off to be able to get to the polls and do their thing, and everyone else, they need to struggle. It needs to be hard. That's not obviously said out loud, but it's just kind of that's how it all seems to work out with the gerrymandering and how they push out things. I mean, I heard DeSantis is trying to put up a voting police, which that sounds very spicy. But I mean, essentially, we'll see what happens in the future. I think more or less this kind of is par for the course for the Biden administration to kind of say, hey, we're going to do something. And I mean, he even tried to like pull this big turnout, like since it was like Martin Luther King's birthday and everything, like he tried to like ride that wave. And people were like, no, dude, you don't need us. You need to work on Congress. You need to work on the Senate. Like, get them to understand what needs to get done. We know what needs to be done. We see the problems here. We know we need to get out and vote. Like, why are you telling us this shit? And I think it is seeking home for people where it's like, dude, we don't need this grandstanding. We need action. Like, the grandstanding got him in office, but really we just didn't want Trump in. And I think he's just kind of proving, like, yeah, I'm not Trump. And it's like, cool, but you kind of are, at least in some of your policies. But that's a whole other thing. But to close out, I wanted to cover what I kind of deem as a lighter issue. But I got this from, I believe, NBC News. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I said my sources correctly. But essentially, the CIA says Havana syndrome, not result of sustained campaign by hostile power. Essentially, this is an update from a previous episode last year where I covered Havana syndrome. I can't remember exactly what I said in it, but essentially, I mean, I at the time felt like it was at least being covered in a serious light, so I gave it at least some serious, narration, I guess. But at the same time, it's a kerfuffle. Like, it's one of those things where if you don't know what Havana syndrome is, essentially people were saying, hey, I was doing my work, as CIA, whatever, diplomatic person, and, like, they were in, Havana, Cuba, working, doing embassy stuff, whatever, and they were saying they were getting, like, violently ill, like, severe headaches, bad bowel movements, all the works, like, just terrible, terrible symptoms, and, for their entire duration in Cuba. And, it was happening so much, and it was getting reported so much, and they're saying, hey, something's going on here, like, this might be a literal attack, from a hostile power. I think the initial was Russia. A lot of fingers were pointed there, which, I mean, hey, I get it. Especially, looking at things going on lately, Russia can get accused of a lot of things, and I'm sure a lot of it can stick. But in terms of them aiming little sound rays and putting up sound devices in people's things and doing all this, that, and the third, I don't know. I still don't know. And apparently the CIA is saying, we don't know either. They essentially put up a whole report saying, like, hey, we're not saying that these symptoms aren't happening to people, but we aren't saying that it's a foreign power doing it. I mean, essentially, I think there are, like, I guess Havana syndrome advocacy groups or whatever who are kind of saying, like, hey, we would like to see more support our way. And I think even Blinken, who, let's see, what is his position? He does a lot of stuff. I should know this by now, but bear with me. But essentially, people are saying, like, hey, we're with you, we support you, but we're just trying to figure out exactly what it is, and I'm sure they're getting some kind of money support somehow for this thing. But, I mean, in terms of what I think it is, I don't know. But I mean, if they find out exactly, I will definitely let you know. I will definitely update you. Sorry for that in there, guys. I guess like I said, the Milwaukee's best kicking in. Whew. But thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for hanging out. Essentially, this is Shillville time. I got a Patreon at patreon.com/Isaiah News. If you want to check that out, there's the Newsy Bundle. That tier will get you a Discord invite, a shout out on the podcast, and potentially more. Who knows? But also, we have a Twitter at Isaiah, what is it? _news1, I believe. Then there is Isaiah News that's our Facebook, and that's also the Instagram. And then I have a Gmail as well. I believe that is Isaiah News. If not, I will update later. But, I miss these kind of things sometimes. It's okay. But either way, you can hit us up, communicate with us. We would love to talk to you. We have a Spotify as well. We're on all those things like Apple Podcast, Anchor FM. I think we even have a Stitcher. It's crazy. We have a YouTube page up as well. It's under Isaiah Edwards. So, I mean, you can always keep up with the Joneses no matter what. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. And we'll catch you next week. Hopefully, we will see you soon for some more good news. Love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.